Hey guys, it's Jake here with eTrailer. Today we have a 2014 Flagstaff travel trailer and we're going to be taking a look at and I'm going to show you how to install the Fogatti Tankless water heater. This water heater is going to be an instant water heater. So what it's designed to do is when you turn the hot water on, it will sense the flow of water. This will kick on, it heats up some coils using propane, and then it will send back hot water to whatever spigot you have open almost immediately. There's usually only about a 10 to 15 second delay from when you turn it on to when you've got hot water. The biggest difference right off the bat with an instant water heater like this or a tankless water heater is that it's not going to have a reserve tank that you will use the hot water from. So your traditional tank water heaters, just like you have in your house, are going to have a big reserve tank, and then it's going to have a flame that heats up that entire tank. Well, the problem with that is that whenever you're using the water, you can use up all of your hot water, just like in your house. Your house is a little bit more difficult to do because that's a huge tank. So like if you're doing dishes or you're taking a shower at home, you're not going to ever notice if you've run out of hot water. With these, they're only usually between an 8 and a 10 gallon water heater. And that's all the hot water that you have. And it takes a very long time to heat up 8 to 10 gallons of water if you use it all. Where that comes into play with a camper is that you either have to take a military style shower where you got to turn the water on, get yourself wet, and then turn it off, soap up, turn the water back on, get the soap off, and then you have to keep doing that back and forth just so that you can save water. Well, I can tell you from a personal experience with this particular water heater, I've got the same one in my camper, having a nice hot shower on a really sweaty day or a super cold day when you're out camping is one of the best things that you can give yourself when you're out camping. Having a tank water heater, you kind of have to ration your water if you want to do dishes after it. You know, that's all of these things play into the amount of hot water that you have at your disposal. Now with this water heater, as long as you've got propane, as long as you've got a water source, which normally hooked up to a well, you're never going to have a problem with running out of water. You're most likely going to run out of propane first, but you can run this water heater as long as you want. The thing I like about it is that me particularly, when my wife and I were out camping, she can be in the shower and I can be doing dishes at the same time, both using hot water, and this thing can feed both of them and not one has to sacrifice over the other. The other thing is that she can take a normal household style shower where it's 10 to 15 minutes long and never turn the water off and still get that same hot water the whole time. This is what your controller is going to look like. So you can install it pretty much anywhere you want. It'll have a pretty short cord, so that's why we installed ours here next to the bed. What's nice about it is you usually just have to set it and then you won't ever have to touch it again. The temperature fluctuation, you'll adjust it here with these side arrows. We've got it set at 105 because that's the perfect temperature for the owner of this camper. They don't like to mix the cold water in with it. But if you go to do dishes and you've got particularly a lot of greasy stuff, you can just come over here, pump the water heater up to a little bit hotter and be able to get that grease and stuff off of your dishes. This will have a range from 95 degrees all the way up to 123 degrees Fahrenheit. Now on particularly hot or cold days, you may see a temperature fluctuation of plus or minus 3 degrees Fahrenheit from the water heater or whatever you have the temperature set at on your controller to what you're actually feeling coming out of the faucet. With this particular water heater, you are going to have a 55,000 BTU rating, so that's quite a bit of heat that you're putting in here to get that hot water out of it. The way that it does it is it's going to run through these little bitty coils on the inside that you can see, and then it's going to heat that up from the inside, and that's what makes it instantly hot. As soon as you turn that water on, the water heater is going to kick on, heat that water up, and give it to you almost immediately. The nice thing about this is it's still going to give you 2.9 gallons per minute. That is pretty fast for an add-on accessory to your camper. A lot of the water pumps on campers can't even do that. Usually they're about 1.5, 1.7. Knowing that this water heater has that capability, you may want to upgrade your water pump too. Just like on your traditional water heaters, you are going to have a pressure relief valve right here. If you ever do have to use this, I like what Fogatti did here is that they have a little trough here so that whenever you go to pull this, the water's going to run through that trough and run straight out. A lot of these pressure relief valves inside of the traditional style water heaters will be back inside, and when you pull this lever, it's going to get water all over the components. They're rated to get a little bit wet, but the one that we're replacing, or the one that we replaced, is another instant water heater. It had the hose for some reason facing up, and when you go to pull this, it's going to spray water straight up. So I just really like how they went the extra mile to put this little trough in to keep everything nice and clean on the inside. Now that we've gone over those details, we're going to show you how to install this, but just to preface it, we're replacing a tankless water heater with this Fogatti tankless water heater. So it may look a little different when we're making those connections, but we'll point out what might be different when we're doing the installation. To begin your installation, what we're going to need to do is take our old water heater out. If you've got the one that came with your camper, it's most likely going to look just like this with the screws on the inside. Just open up your door. You'll see that we do have an instant water heater here, but the owner of this does not like how this one is performing. Sometimes it gets hot, sometimes it doesn't. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take these screws out using a square head. Now with all of our screws out, we did have some on the inside here. Oh, there's one more. This is to hold the faceplate on, which we're going to have with our new water heater. But we'll just take this faceplate, and we're probably going to have to, we've got some heavy butyl tape behind here. I may have to take a scraper and pry out on the edges a little bit in order for it to let go. We're just going to get behind here. Cut some of the sealant off. What we're going to do here is we've got a lot of butyl tape on this. You don't have to, it's not absolutely necessary to put butyl tape behind here. Butyl tape is more so necessary like on roof accessories because they're flat on top of the roof and water can run down into these screw holes and stuff. What we're gonna do is once we get our faceplate on, our new one, I'm just gonna do a very diligent job of sealing around the edges. We can put a little bit of sealant on top of the screws and stuff, and that definitely will help, but putting all this butyl tape behind it, all it's going to do is cause your whole framework here to stick out further off the camper, and I don't like how that looks. And we're going to take a scraper tool. I don't like to use a metal scraper because you can scratch this, the siding on your camper. So just take a plastic scraper and scrape off all the caulk, and if you have butyl tape on here. Now what we need to do, now we've got our whole faceplate here cleaned up, is we're going to have to disconnect all our wiring. What I'm going to do here is, since this is an aftermarket one, it may look different than what you've got, but basically disconnect the wires and then disconnect the hoses off the back side. You should have a cold water in and a hot water out on the back side, and then also your gas line going in because it's going to use gas to heat up the water. So we'll get all of those different things connected right now. And it's a good idea when you're doing this kind of stuff is just keep an eye on what is hooked to what. So we've got our DC power, and then we've got our DC ground here, and then the other two is just going to be your remote wires. Just keep an eye on what each one does. What I like to do is I'll take this wire and I'm just going to cut a little bit off so that we can still disconnect everything, but then I can set my water heater off to the side, and now I know that the black wire was connected to this white wire and the red wire is connected to this brown wire. That way you get everything hooked back up the way it was before, and you don't have to mark anything, write anything down. You can just look at your old water heater, see that you disconnected the wires from each other. Now this can be tricky to get to your water lines, especially if you don't have an access panel like we do on the inside. Just do your best to get those disconnected. We may actually have enough hose here to where I can pull this out, which I think I might do. I might try to pull the water heater out of its cubby, and that'll help us to get to those fittings on the back a lot easier. Some manufacturers are pretty nice to you, and they'll give you a lot of extra slack in your line. This one, I don't know if I've ever seen this much slack, but this is gonna let us pull these fittings right out here. And the best part about this is we can get to our fittings right here on the back, and that means we can hook our fittings back up, just like this. We'll have some residual water come out of here. Shouldn't be a whole lot. We just got a towel down there to collect that. Now with all of our connections undone, we're just going to take our unit, set it close by so that we can use those wires as reference for installing the new one. On our new water heater, let's take these caps off. I like to leave them on until we're absolutely ready to put our water heater in place, because it just keeps the threads really, really clean and away from corrosion. We'll take some thread tape, and you want to put it on to where whenever you go to screw that on, it actually tightens the thread tape. So that'll be like this. You want to do that same thing for each one of our connections here on the back, making 2 or 3 rounds around our threads. Now we'll take our new water heater, set it up in place, and we can get those lines reconnected. Just make sure you're hooking hot to hot and cold to cold. Once you get your water lines hooked up, take it, rotate it back up and into place. If you need to crib up the inside a little bit to support the back of the box, you can definitely do that. See, we've got this blocking here to be able to prop up the back side. And we'll just want to come inside, and you may have to bend up your copper line here a little bit, your propane line, to get it to match up to the new one. Ours did, because it was not lining up perfectly, because this port was a little higher than our old one. Now onto the wiring. We've got our positive and negative, just like we had on our old one. And then we've got these 2 remote wires, just like on the old one. You'll notice a lot of these water heaters are very, very similar. This one's really nice because they have a little tag on it. It says the black is the power wire and the white is the the ground wire. So all we have to do is look at our old water heater, see what wires the last installer used. We can check them. I've checked these and they work perfectly fine. We'll go ahead and get those connected up. Now we need to get our remote wired up. This is going to be your controls for everything regarding the water heater. What doesn't make sense to me in this camper is that the water heater is up at the very, very front by the bedroom, and the controls for the water heater are back in the bathroom, which is back at the back of the camper. So there's really no reason for your remote control to be back there. I would put it as close as these two wires allow you. You can put 2 extension wires on here if you want to replace the one that is already in here, your little controls. What they did when they installed this other one aftermarket is they just cut those wires and just nutted them back together, and then they put the new remote right next to the bed. It's not a huge deal. This is one of those things that you're probably just going to use it to turn it on and off whenever you get to the campsite, so it's not something you always have to adjust like an AC control or something like that. So we're going to go in and I'll show you. I'm going to cut the wires on the back side of the old remote, tape these off, and then go back underneath by the water heater and pull them down. Just use the existing wire as a fish wire to pull the new wire through. We'll just cut this wire. I know we are not going to be reusing this water heater, so I'm not worried about how long that length is. Then we'll just take our new one and tape it off to that so we can pull it down. Now you may notice on your remote or your controller, there's 2 black wires, and on the unit there's 2 blue wires. The connectivity of those do not matter. There's no like power or ground here. You just have to connect one of the blacks to the blue and the other one to the other blue wire. When you're doing this installation, I highly recommend picking up some heat shrink butt connectors. With this all dealing with water, I do not want any of these connections to ever get wet, and it also helps to prevent them from corroding if you ever get moisture in this bay. Just give each one of your connections a little tug to make sure that none of them are going to come loose when you're headed down the road. We'll just take a heat source and heat up our connections here. Now what I'm going to do, once all our connections are made and we got all our butt connectors shrink down, we'll take some tape. I'm just going to wrap this little wad up. You can use a zip tie, I just don't happen to have any on me right now. Just tape this up and tape it out of the way. So what we'll do is we got to put our foam on the back side of this, and you'll get this in your kit. We'll just peel this off. We're just going to run this foam around this edge. If the back of your door is not perfectly clean, ours is brand new right out of the box, so we didn't have to do anything with it. But if yours is not, like if you've taken it out, handled it a bunch, you may want to take some rubbing alcohol in order to prep the surface to have this stick quite a bit better. Once you get your door lined up, what you want to do is take these small bolts. They don't have a screw head on them. And you see these little holes in the bottom? Those threaded holes need to be on the inside. And then there's holes on the outside that you'll need to screw these together. With everything secured on the door, we'll take the whole water heater, slide it back into place until that seal makes good contact with our wall. Then we'll take the included screws and run them in. When you're using these screws, just be very careful. Once you get close, you just want to see that seal compressed. You can't drive these home because the sidewall campers are not made out of super reliable material, so it's very difficult, or it's very easy to strip these holes out. Now we've got all our screws in place. The door is hanging on good. We'll make sure that our little cover here, this will kind of break in over time, this seal here. So you don't have to worry about that. Just make sure it latches. Everything's good. We're gonna wait to seal this up, the edge of this up with caulk, until we know everything's working properly. To get your controller mounted to the wall, again, we just put it right here above the water heater, right next to the bed. There's a little grommet here you can run the wire through before you wire everything up. I just chose to go below it. That's what these two little slots here are for. You can just run the wire over to the side, get it in one of those little slots. Take the included screw, screw that to the wall, and we can snap this in place. Now we've got everything hooked back up. We've got our water line connected in here. We made sure that we turned our hydrant on. We've got our propane hooked back up, and then we hooked up the, turned on the switch on the inside for our water heater. We'll just pop this switch on, and now we can go inside and test out our water heater. We're back here in our bathroom. We're gonna turn our hot water on. And then I've got this infrared thermometer. I've got our thermostat or controller up there set at 105. So that's a pretty good showering temperature. You can see here, after our water heater kicks on, it'll start to rise and get hotter and hotter. The nice thing about it is, even running this for the first time, it only took about 30 seconds for this hot water to get back here. It's nice and warm. And you are going to lose a little bit of temperature from the controller back here, or from the water heater itself. So right now we're reading about 100 degrees. Yeah, about 100 degrees. So there's 102. So we lost about 3 degrees from the water heater itself all the way back here. But again, we're in the bathroom, which is in the back of the camper, and especially during wintertime, you may lose even more because the underbelly's cold. So those lines get cold. But after you've taken a shower for about 2 to 3 minutes, those lines will be warmed up, and you should be able to achieve that temperature. Now that we know everything's working properly, that's going to do it for the installation. The only thing that we have left to do is I'm just going to disconnect this water real quick and then put a small bead of silicone or caulk right around the edge just to be extra safe. We do have that foam seal, but I don't want any water getting in there. And that's going to do it for the installation. If you do not feel confident in yourself to do this install at your house or wherever you want to do it, do not be afraid to use our dealer locator to find a dealer near you that can get this installed. Ours was a little bit simpler and more straightforward today because we were swapping a tankless water heater for another tankless water heater. So it was a matter of cutting 4 wires and reconnecting those same 4 wires. If you're replacing a factory one, it might be a little bit more difficult to get to those connections on the back. If it's got any corrosion on it, taking those fittings off, that's where our dealer locator will really help you in order to get this installed. Well guys, hopefully this video helped you decide whether or not the Fogatti tankless water heater is right for you in your camper.